Welcome to BaseballGuys.com. I'm your host, Ray Flowers. Big player in the news today, it's the Mets' Jose Reyes. Good news and bad news with Reyes. The good news, his hyperthyroid, his hypothyroid, whatever the issue is with that thyroid of his, it doesn't appear one that will need surgery, and it also doesn't appear to be one that needs any medication. Really good news for his long-term prognosis. However, in the short term, not so good for Reyes. Because they want to make sure he's stable, they need to make sure he doesn't exert himself physically so he can get some good baseline readings, make sure all of his thyroid situation checks out properly. What that means, practically speaking, is that Reyes will miss anywhere from 1 to 7 weeks from today. Yeah, long time. That means he could be back by opening day, though it doesn't seem likely. It also means he could miss the entire month of April, which does seem more likely at this point. Though, to be honest, we have no idea. He could be back on the field in 10 days. It might take that full 7 weeks before we see him back in game action. Obviously, this hurts his value fantasy-wise. It drops him. Boy, if he's in the top 10 at shortstop, you're really taking a gamble. They had the leg issues from last season and now the health issue here. Just don't know what you're going to get for him. Bad news for the Mets, who are now going to be without Beltran and Reyes, it looks like, for the basically the first month of the season. 2010 starting out just like 2009 ended for the New York Mets. Brian Roberts, another player with an injury issue. He's had some back concerns. He was also set back recently by the flu. That didn't help things. But he's taken some work in the field the last couple days. He hopes to progress to taking some swings in the cage on Friday. If that all goes well, there's still a hope. There's still a belief that Roberts can get ready in time for opening day. Whether or not that happens or not, little doubtful at this point. The Orioles have been said to be in the market for adding potentially a veteran guy to help at second base. There's not a concern with Roberts that he's going to miss a massive amount of time, but there is some concern, like I said, about that availability for opening day. Knock him down a notch or two on your draft boards and fantasy leagues because of that, but still hold tight. Robert should be okay by mid-April and should be back to being the disruptive force he is from the top of the order for the Royals, though it does bear in mind that you keep close attention to that back issue because he has a lot of his value derived from his wheels. Brandon Webb, not so good news with Brandon Webb either. His shoulder's been a concern, limited him to just one start last season. A lot of hope this year that he would be ready to go from the start of the year. Doesn't look like that's going to happen for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Webb, it was reported on here around the horn at BaseballGuys.com, had kind of hit a plateau, hasn't been able to push through it. He's just not at a point where his shoulder is ready to go yet. Because of that, there's a belief that they would have to really push him hard in order to get him enough work to be ready for the start of opening day. Given the concerns with the shoulder and all the time he missed last year, that seems extremely unlikely to occur. Therefore, expect Webb to start the year on the disabled list. It's not necessarily a huge setback, one that's going to cost him the first half of the season or anything like that, but don't expect to see Brandon Webb on the hill until mid-April, and even then, got to be a little bit concerned about what has been a very slow start to the preseason for him this year. Lance Berkman's another player who had a bit of a slow start. He had some issues with his knee. He's pushed through that. He's returned to the field at this point, but there still is some lingering concern about that issue. Berkman will visit with the doctor on Friday to get another checkup. Apparently, he's had the knee drained twice, had some fluid taken out of there twice because of the swelling and the discomfort he's had. This looks like an issue that might linger on. Obviously, he's not a big base stealer. He's not someone that really needs his legs to derive a lot of his fantasy value, but it is a big concern because the legs are obviously the foundation of everything you do when you're at the plate. Keep a close eye on Berkman. You might want to also knock him down your draft board a few spots. This does look like a situation that might linger, even if it's of the minor variety. Shawn Marcum, he's set up to open the year, looks like, as the opening day starter for the Blue Jays. He's looked very good in camp so far. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's throwing all his pitches, getting good movement, throwing strikes. Blue Jays are very pleased with what they've seen from him so far. He can be a very solid AL-only option this year, one of those guys you spend a couple bucks on at the end of the draft and return to some nice value. Don't forget about Shawn Marcum if you're heading into an AL-only draft in 2010. David Price hurt his hand. He took a shard off a bat from Adrian Beltre. Beltre hit a ball. The bat exploded. Part of the bat hit Price in the hand. It was his non-pitching hand, so it's not a big-time concern. Caused a little bit of blood, etc., etc. But Price is okay. He should be fine. He should make his next start. No worries about him long-term. But this will maybe ratchet up the talk of those who really want to see maple bats outlawed because they don't blow up like ash bats. They go into those shards that can obviously cause a lot of damage, like it almost did with Price. And finally, Brian Giles. His knee's not right. He physically can't do it anymore. He was trying to make the Dodgers out of camp here. He's just not going to be able to do it. Was honest with himself and decided to retire. Giles had a great career. He hasn't been, that player for a couple of seasons. The power's really disappeared from his game. But people forget that if we go from 1980 to the present, so a span of 30 years, Of all the batters who've had at least 3,000 plate appearances in that time, Brian Giles is one of only 11 men in that 30 years to have a 290 batting average, a 400 on-base percentage, and a 500 slugging percentage. He wasn't just a good player, he was a very good player for an awful long period of time. Sad to see you go, Mr. Giles, but we wish you luck moving forward. Again, I'm Ray Flowers, it's baseballguys.com. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to y'all again soon.